I arrived at work early on a Tuesday morning, like I had for the past 14 years. The office was still quiet, just the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of the cleaning crew finishing up. I headed to the copy room to print some client reports when I saw it. A document, left open on the printer. Payroll information. And there, in black and white, was Tyler's name. The new hire had been training for the past week. His salary, $78,000. Mine, after 14 years, $38,000. The paper shook in my hands, ice water through my veins. This couldn't be real. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at those numbers. 78,000, 38,000, a $40,000 difference for someone who'd been here 1 week compared to my 14 years. My mind raced back through everything I'd built at this company. I started when I was 23 years old, fresh out of the University of Texas with a business degree and stars in my eyes. I took an entry-level coordinator position, answered phones, filed paperwork, made coffee. I told myself it was just the beginning, that hard work would pay off. And I did work hard. 60-hour weeks were normal for me. I never missed a deadline, never called in sick, unless I was practically dying. When my father got sick 6 years ago and spent 3 months in the hospital, I still came in every single day. I answered emails at midnight, worked through weekends, sacrificed birthday dinners and holidays because the company needed me. I built things, real, tangible things. The proprietary client database system that everyone relies on, I coded that. I taught myself SQL and Python on weekends and created a system that tracks every client interaction, every contract detail, every renewal date. Before that system, we were using spreadsheets and missing renewals left and right. Now we have a 97% retention rate. I trained people. Over 30 employees in my 14 years here. I showed them the ropes, answered their questions at all hours, covered for them when they made mistakes. Many of them moved on to senior positions, got promoted, climbed the ladder. I cheered them on. I was genuinely happy for them. And my rewards? 2 to 3% raises each year, promises of promotions that never materialized. It was always next quarter or budget constraints or we're restructuring. I believed them. I trusted that my loyalty meant something. Tyler. I thought about Tyler. 22 years old, fresh out of college with a degree from Stanford. He was cocky in that way young guys often are, asking basic questions about our systems, making errors I had to fix quietly so he wouldn't look bad in front of the team. Just yesterday, I'd spent 3 hours walking him through our client communication protocols, and he made $40,000 more than me. By lunchtime, I couldn't hold it together anymore. My hands were shaking, my vision blurry with tears I refused to let fall at my desk. I grabbed my phone and walked straight to the HR department. Sharon Martinez, our HR director, looked up from her computer as I knocked on her open door. She was in her 50s, always perfectly professional, with steel gray hair and an expression that gave nothing away. "Gina, what can I do for you?" I closed the door behind me and sat down without being invited. "I need to talk to you about compensation." Her expression shifted slightly, more guarded. "Okay. I accidentally saw a payroll document today. Tyler's salary. He makes $78,000. Sharon didn't even blink. And I make $38,000 after 14 years here." She folded her hands on her desk. "Gina, I understand this might feel uncomfortable, but compensation is based on multiple factors. What factors justify a $40,000 difference for someone who's been here 1 week versus someone who's been here 14 years and built half the systems this company runs on?" Sharon's voice remained calm, almost clinical. "That's the market rate for his position. You were hired 14 years ago. Compensation structures have changed significantly since then. We pay market rate for new talent to stay competitive." Then, adjust my salary to match market rate. Your salary is commensurate with your experience and tenure here. Market rate applies to new hires specifically because we need to attract talent in a competitive landscape. I stared at her. So you're telling me that my 14 years of proven performance, my track record, the systems I've built, the clients I've retained, all of that is worth less than a fresh graduate with zero experience? I'm saying that market dynamics have shifted. If you want to see a substantial increase in your compensation, you'd need to apply externally and come back to us as a new employee. That's how market rate works. The words hit me like a slap. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an oversight that would be corrected once someone realized. This was policy, deliberate, calculated policy. So loyalty means nothing here. Sharon's expression finally softened, just a fraction. Gina, I understand you're upset, but these are business decisions made at levels above me. I don't set the compensation structure. I just implement it. I stood up, my legs unsteady. Thank you for your time, Sharon. As I walked back to my desk, I felt something crack inside me. Not just disappointment, something deeper. The foundation of trust I'd built my entire career on had just crumbled beneath my feet. I made it through the rest of the day on autopilot, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Sharon had said. The casual way she'd confirmed that my loyalty, my years of service, meant nothing, that I was worth less than someone they'd hired off the street. The next morning, I pulled my friend Maria aside. Maria Santos worked in accounting, had been with the company for 12 years. She was 42, sharp as a tack, and one of the few people in the office I genuinely trusted. We grabbed coffee in the break room, and I kept my voice low. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you know what the new accounting hire makes? The one who started a few months ago? Mariah's expression changed instantly. She set down her coffee cup. Why are you asking? Because I found out Tyler makes $40,000 more than me, and I need to know if this is just me or if it's bigger. Maria looked around to make sure we were alone, then leaned in. It's bigger, way bigger. I discovered it 6 months ago. The new hire in my department, Brian, makes $75,000. I make $42,000. You complained. Of course I complained. I went straight to Sharon. Got the same speech you probably got. Market rate for new hires. My compensation is based on when I was hired. If I want more money, I should go get another offer and come back as a new employee. Like that's a realistic option. This is insane. It gets worse. Maria pulled out her phone, checking again that no one was nearby. I have access to salary data for budget reports. Not everyone, but enough to see patterns. Want to know what I found? Tell me. Every single employee who's been here more than 10 years is severely underpaid compared to new hires in equivalent roles. Every single one. We're talking $30,000 to $50,000 differences across the board. I felt sick. How is this legal? Technically, it is. They're not discriminating based on protected classes. They're just exploiting the fact that people who've been here a long time won't leave. We have families, mortgages, lives built around this job. They're banking on us being too scared to start over. Over the next few days, Maria and I did more digging. She pulled reports. I started casually asking questions. The picture became clearer and more horrifying. 2 employees I'd personally trained, Amanda Harris and Jessica Brooks, were now making significantly more than me. Amanda had been here 3 years. I'd trained her from absolute zero, taught her everything about client management. She was now a senior client strategist, making $65,000. Jessica, who I'd mentored for 2 years, was a lead project manager making $70,000. When I carefully, gently asked them about their roles during a casual lunch, they had no idea about the pay gap. Amanda looked horrified. Gina, I had no clue. That's not right. You taught me everything I know. I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad. I just needed to understand if this was company-wide. Jessica shook her head. This is messed up. You should be making way more than both of us. Is there anything we can do? I don't know yet. That Friday afternoon, Maria came to my desk, looking pale. You need to see something. We went to her car in the parking lot, where she pulled up an email on her phone. This was accidentally CC'd to our accounting department 2 years ago. I saved it because it felt important. I read the email chain. It was from our CEO, Richard Drummond, to the executive team. The subject line, Compensation Strategy for FY 2023-2024. The relevant paragraph made my blood run cold. Moving forward, we'll suppress raises for legacy employees to fund competitive salaries for new talent. Market analysis shows long-tenured employees have golden handcuffs and are unlikely to leave due to vesting, familiarity, and risk aversion. Our priority is attracting new blood with cutting-edge skills. Budget accordingly. I read it 3 times. They're doing this on purpose. It's not incompetence or oversight. It's strategy. They know we won't leave, so they're taking advantage of that. I looked at Maria. We have to do something. Like what? I have 2 kids in college. I can't afford to lose this job. Neither can I. But we can't just accept this. That weekend, I barely slept. My mind was spinning with rage, humiliation, and something else. Something that felt almost like clarity. Monday morning, I did something I'd never done in 14 years. I requested a meeting with the CEO. Richard Drummond was 58, silver-haired, with the kind of effortless confidence that came from never being told no. His assistant seemed surprised when I asked for time on his calendar, but she scheduled me for 15 minutes on Thursday afternoon. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I documented everything, every project he'd led, every system he'd built, every client relationship he'd maintained. I calculated the revenue he'd generated through client retention, over $12 million in the past 5 years alone. I printed it all out, put it in a folder, and rehearsed what he'd say. Thursday at 3 o'clock, I walked into Richard's corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. Expensive art on the walls. A desk that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. Richard barely looked up from his phone as I sat down. Gina, right? What can I do for you? I've got a 4 o'clock, so let's make this quick. I appreciate your time. I wanted to discuss my compensation. That got his attention. He set down his phone, leaned back in his chair. Okay, I'm listening. I've been with this company for 14 years. I've built the client database system we all rely on. I've maintained relationships with our biggest clients. I've trained over 30 employees. I've generated over $12 million in client retention revenue in the past 5 years alone. I slid my documentation across his desk. He glanced at it but didn't pick it up. I recently discovered that a new hire I'm currently training makes $78,000. I make $38,000. A $40,000 gap. I'm asking for a pay equity adjustment. Richard actually laughed. Not a small chuckle. A full laugh. Gina, you're comparing apples to oranges here. How so? Tyler has a degree from Stanford. Fresh perspective. New ideas. That's what we need to stay competitive. I have a degree from University of Texas and 14 years of proven results. The market has changed. Look, I'll be straight with you. You've been comfortable here for a long time. Maybe too comfortable. Sometimes loyalty means being realistic about your ceiling. I felt my face flush. What does that mean? It means you've plateaued. You're good at what you do, don't get me wrong. But we need people who can think outside the box, push boundaries. You're more of a maintain the status quo person. I built systems from scratch. I created processes that didn't exist. How is that maintaining status quo? He waved his hand dismissively. That was years ago. What have you innovated lately? Look, I appreciate your contributions. But I need you to understand something. We're transitioning toward younger, more dynamic talent. People who aren't stuck in old ways of doing things. So what do I need to do to earn the raise? What's the path forward? Richard leaned forward, his expression shifting to something almost pitying. Honestly, I don't think you're a culture fit for where we're going. You're valuable in your current role. Don't misunderstand me. But growth potential? I don't see it. You're 37 years old. Been here since you were 23. You've been doing essentially the same job for over a decade. That tells me something about your ambition level. The words felt like physical blows. I kept my voice steady. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you be realistic. Look, I'll be straight with you, because I think you can handle it. We've been transitioning the team toward younger, more dynamic talent. Your generation. You're dependable, sure, but you're not disruptive. You don't challenge assumptions, and in today's market, that's what we need. Disruptors. So there's no path to fair compensation for me here. If you're unhappy with your compensation, the market is open. You're free to look elsewhere. But between you and me, he lowered his voice like he was doing me a favor. At your age, with your tenure here, you'd struggle to find better. Most companies want hungry young talent now. People in their 20s, early 30s max. Not people who are set in their ways. My advice? Accept what you have. Be grateful for stability, or take your chances out there, but I think you'll find him right. I stood up slowly, gathering my folder. Thank you for your time, Richard. No hard feelings, I hope. Just business. I walked out of his office, down the hall, past my desk, straight to my car. I sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, shaking with a rage so intense I couldn't see straight. He didn't just deny me a raise. He told me I was too old, too comfortable, too stuck. He told me to be grateful for what I had because I'd never find better. He looked me in the eye and told me I was worthless, and he expected me to just accept it. For the first time in 14 years, I left work early without asking permission. I drove home in a daze, went inside my apartment, and broke down. I cried for an hour, all the humiliation and pain pouring out. But then, around midnight, something shifted. The tears stopped, the fog cleared, and I started to think, really think. I opened my laptop and started making lists. First list. Everything I controlled that they didn't realize I controlled. The client database system. I coded it myself, working nights and weekends 5 years ago. I was the only person who fully understood its architecture. Sure, other people could use it, but the deep backend, the integration points, the custom workflows, that was all me. I had all the passwords, all the documentation, all the knowledge, client relationships. 23 major clients, worth $8 million in annual revenue, had my personal cell phone number. They texted me directly. They trusted me. When DataCore Solutions had that crisis last year at 2 a.m, who did they call? Me. Not the company. Me. Proprietary processes. I'd created workflow systems, training protocols, client communication templates. Some were documented in company systems. Most lived in my head or my personal notes. Evidence. I had the salary data Maria shared. I had that executive email about suppressing legacy employee pay. I had documentation of every contribution I'd made. Second list. What I needed to do. Friday morning, I updated my LinkedIn profile for the first time in years. I uploaded a portfolio showcasing the client database system I'd built. I highlighted my project management successes, my client retention rate, testimonials from satisfied clients. I made my profile public and set my status to open to opportunities. By Friday afternoon, my inbox had 3 messages from recruiters. I took calls that evening. 2 companies wanted to interview me. Both were impressed by my background. One was a mid-sized tech firm in Denver. The other was a consulting company here in Austin. Saturday and Sunday, I did video interviews with both. I was honest about my current salary and what I was looking for. I showed them my work, my systems, my client retention metrics. Monday morning, I had 2 offers. Denver company, $75,000 with relocation assistance. Austin consulting firm, $85,000 plus a $10,000 sign-on bonus. I called the Austin firm back. I appreciate the offer. I'm very interested, but I need to be transparent. I have another offer, and am currently making far less than market rate. For me to make this move, it'd need to see $95,000 plus the sign-on bonus. There was a pause. Then, let me talk to my partners. Can I call you back in an hour? 45 minutes later, my phone rang. We can do $95,000, sign-on bonus, plus equity options. When can you start? I need to give 2 weeks' notice, so 3 weeks from now, we can work with that. I'll send the written offer today. I hung up and sat there, staring at my phone. $95,000, $57,000 more than I currently made, 43% increase. Richard told me I'd struggle to find better. He was wrong, but I wasn't done yet. I started backing up documentation. Not company secrets, nothing proprietary that wasn't mine, but the processes I'd created, the system architecture I'd designed, my personal notes on client preferences and communication styles, all of it went onto my personal hard drive. I prepared a transition document, but only for the basic tasks, the surface-level stuff anyone could figure out. The deep knowledge, the stuff that made the systems actually work, that stayed in my head. Then I did something that felt slightly risky but completely necessary. I reached out to 3 of my closest client contacts, not to pitch anything, not to make promises, just to let them know, casually, that I was exploring new opportunities and wanted to stay connected regardless of where I ended up. The responses were immediate and surprising. DataCore Solutions CEO, Frank Patterson, called me directly within an hour. Gina, I just saw your message. Are you leaving? I'm considering my options. I need you to know something, and I'm going to be very direct. We don't have a relationship with your company. We have a relationship with you. If you go somewhere else, we're moving our contract with you. I've already discussed this with my board. Where you go, we go. I was speechless for a moment. Frank, I appreciate that, more than you know. You've saved our operations more times than I can count. You know our systems. You know our people. That's irreplaceable. Just promise me you'll let me know where you land. I will. 2 other clients sent similar messages. Pinnacle Systems and Alliance Tech. Both made it clear that their loyalty was to me, not to my company. Suddenly, I realized something profound. My value wasn't just my skills or my knowledge. It was trust. Years of building relationships, being reliable, solving problems at 3 a.m, remembering birthdays and asking about kids. Those relationships were mine, not the company's, and Richard had no idea. I spent Sunday evening preparing a manila envelope. Inside, I placed several documents. My resignation letter, effective in 2 weeks. A detailed chart showing the pay discrimination, including the executive email Maria had given me. A list of my contributions over 14 years, with dollar values attached. $12 million in client retention. The database system worth an estimated $500,000 to rebuild from scratch. Training costs saved by my mentoring, over $200,000. Copies of the client emails stating they'd follow me to a new company. A professional letter outlining that I was willing to provide basic transition support, but comprehensive knowledge transfer of the database system would require consulting fees. Market rate for that level of consulting, $50,000 for a full knowledge transfer. And finally, a personal note. Richard, you told me to take my chances in the market. I did. I received 3 offers, all significantly higher than my current salary. I accepted one at $95,000, 43% more than what you pay me. Turns out I'm not as stuck, too old, or irrelevant as you suggested. Thank you for the clarity. It helped me see my real worth. Sincerely, Gina. Monday morning, I arrived at 6:30 in the morning. The office was empty. I walked straight to Richard's office, placed the envelope on his chair where he'd see it immediately, and walked back to my desk. Then I waited. Richard usually arrived around 8 in the morning. I sat at my desk, appearing to work on client reports, but my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 8:15. His office light turned on. 8:20. I saw him through his glass wall, picking up the envelope, opening it. 8:25. He was reading, his expression changing from curious to concerned, to something close to panic. 8:30. My desk phone rang. Richard's extension. Gina, can you come to my office, please? Sharon from HR will be joining us. Of course. Give me 5 minutes. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, grabbed my water bottle, and walked to his office. Sharon was already there, looking tense. The envelope contents were spread across Richard's desk. I sat down, crossed my legs, folded my hands in my lap. Calm, professional. Richard tried to smile. It looked painful. Gina, I think there's been a misunderstanding about our conversation last week. I don't believe there was any misunderstanding. You were very clear, Sharon jumped in. Gina, we value you tremendously. I think emotions were running high, and perhaps things were said that didn't come out right. Richard told me I'd plateaued, that I'm not a culture fit, that I'm too old and set in my ways to find better opportunities elsewhere, that I should be grateful for what I have. Those were his exact words. Was I mistaken? Richard shifted uncomfortably. I was trying to be honest with you about market realities, and I was trying to be honest with you about my market realities. Turns out they're different than you thought. Sharon leaned forward. We'd like to discuss a counteroffer. We don't want to lose you. I appreciate that, Sharon. But I've already accepted another position. Richard's calm facade cracked slightly. Gina, let's not be hasty. You've been here 14 years. That's a lot of history to walk away from. Let's talk numbers. How about 65,000, plus a retention bonus? That's still $13,000 below what you pay Tyler, who I'm currently training. Okay, 75,000. That's almost double your current salary, plus a $10,000 retention bonus. The offer I accepted is 95,000. But this isn't just about the money anymore. Richard's expression hardened. What else is it about? It's about respect. It's about being valued. It's about working somewhere that doesn't see my loyalty as a weakness to exploit. We've never exploited you. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and showed him the message Maria had forwarded. The one about suppressing raises for legacy employees because of golden handcuffs. This is from you, Richard. 2 years ago, you literally strategized about keeping our salaries low because you knew we wouldn't leave. That's not a misunderstanding. That's exploitation. Sharon closed her eyes briefly. Richard looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Here's the reality, I continued, my voice steady. Data Core Solutions, Pinnacle Systems, and Alliance Tech have all confirmed they'll move their contracts if I leave. That's $8 million in annual revenue. You'll also need to rebuild the client database system from scratch, which will cost at least $500,000 and take at least 6 months, during which time you'll lose clients due to service disruptions. So you're looking at potentially 15 to 20 million in losses over the next year. Richard leaned back in his chair. You're threatening us. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm stating facts. The clients reached out to me. I didn't solicit them. They have the right to choose their vendors. We could pursue legal action for tortious interference. This was the moment I'd prepared for. I pulled another document from my folder. I consulted an employment attorney this weekend. The clients contacted me of their own volition. I haven't signed anything with them, haven't made any promises, haven't solicited their business. They have the absolute legal right to choose their service providers. But here's what I did find interesting. I slid the document across his desk. My employment contract. Specifically, the section where a non-compete clause should be. Except there isn't one. You never had me sign a non-compete. So legally, I can work anywhere I want, including direct competitors, and there's nothing you can do about it. Richard grabbed the contract, flipped through it. His jaw tightened. And the client database system, I continued. I built it on my own time, initially as a personal project that I later donated to the company. I have time-stamped documentation of the original code, all created on my personal laptop before I ever proposed it as a company tool. I never signed over the intellectual property rights. I have emails proving I offered it for company use, but never transferred ownership. So technically, the core architecture is still my intellectual property. Sharon looked at Richard. Is that true? He didn't answer. I had one more card to play. The consulting offer I mentioned in my resignation letter, the $50,000 for knowledge transfer? That's actually below market rate for this type of specialized system migration. But I was trying to be fair. However, if we can't reach an amicable resolution, I'm happy to just walk away in 2 weeks and let you figure it out on your own. Richard stared at me like he'd never seen me before. You've thought of everything. I've had a lot of motivation to think clearly. Sharon spoke up, her voice different now. Less corporate, more human. Richard, she's right. I've been telling you for 2 years we have a retention problem. We've lost 4 senior employees in the last 18 months for exactly this reason. The cost of turnover is already killing our budget. And if this pay discrimination pattern becomes public, if someone files a lawsuit or this gets media attention, we're looking at way more than $1 million in damages, legal fees, and reputation repair. She turned to me. Gina, I owe you an apology. I enforced a policy I fundamentally disagreed with because I thought I didn't have a choice. I was wrong. I should have pushed back harder on this compensation strategy from the beginning. I hadn't expected that. Thank you, Sharon. Richard looked between us, trapped. What do you want, Gina? Really, what do you want? I don't just want a price tag. I want systemic change. What does that mean? I pulled out a list I'd prepared. Here are my terms. I read from my list, my voice clear and steady. 1. Immediate salary adjustment to $95,000, matching my outside offer. 2. Comprehensive audit of all employee salaries, adjusting long-tenured employees to market rate within 90 days. 3. Maria Santos receives immediate adjustment to $75,000. 4. Transparent salary bands published internally by end of quarter 2. 5. Annual market rate reviews for all employees, not just new hires, beginning next fiscal year. 6. I stay for 6 months, not 2 weeks, to ensure proper knowledge transfer, but with the new salary effective immediately. 7. After 6 months, I'll decide whether to stay permanently or take the outside offer, which will be held open. 8. A company-wide memo acknowledging the contributions of long-tenured employees and announcing the compensation reforms. Richard's face went through several shades of red. Do you have any idea what this will cost? We're talking over $1 million in salary adjustments across the company. I'm aware. I did the math. It's approximately $1.2 million annually. The board will never approve this. Then don't ask them to approve it. Let me walk in 2 weeks. DataCore, Pinnacle, and Alliance walk with me. That's $8 million in revenue gone immediately. Add the system rebuild cost, the knowledge loss, the operational chaos, and you're easily looking at 15 to 20 million in total impact over the next year. You can spend 1.2 million to keep 8 million in guaranteed revenue and preserve institutional knowledge, or you can save money in the short term and lose everything. Sharon was nodding. Richard, she's absolutely right. This isn't even a difficult business decision. The ROI is obvious. We're setting a precedent. Every employee who gets a better offer will expect us to match. Good, I said simply. That means you'll be forced to pay people fairly from the start instead of exploiting their loyalty. That's how it should work. Richard ran his hand through his hair. This is blackmail. No, it's negotiation. Blackmail would be if I threatened to expose the executive email about suppressing legacy employee compensation to the press or to an employment attorney for a class action lawsuit, which I'm not doing. I'm giving you a chance to fix this quietly, internally, before it becomes a legal nightmare. Sharon's eyes widened slightly. Richard, if there's a class action lawsuit, we're talking millions in settlements, legal fees, years of litigation, and permanent damage to our reputation. No top talent will want to work here. He looked at both of us, realization dawning that he was cornered. You two have this all figured out, don't you? Sharon spoke firmly. I haven't conspired with Gina, but she's right. I've watched this compensation strategy hurt us for 2 years. I've had to enforce policies I knew were wrong. I've watched good people leave because we refused to value them fairly, and I've told you repeatedly that this would backfire. Well, here we are. It's backfired. Richard was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed, deep and tired. Fine. I'll take this to the board. I'll present it as a retention crisis that requires immediate intervention. But I need 48 hours. I can give you 48 hours, I said. And if the board says no, then I leave in 2 weeks as planned, and you deal with the consequences. He nodded slowly. Understood. I stood up. Thank you for hearing me out. As I reached the door, Sharon called out, Gina. I turned. You're the bravest person I've seen in a long time. Truly, I smiled. I'm not brave. I just finally realized what I'm worth. Back at my desk, my hands were trembling from adrenaline. Maria appeared beside me within minutes. What happened? Everyone saw you go into Richard's office with Sharon. Let's take a walk. Outside, in the parking lot. I told her everything. The offers, the envelope, the negotiation, all of it. Mariah's eyes filled with tears. You asked for a raise from me. You deserved it 2 years ago. You deserve more than 75,000, honestly. But I figured it was a realistic starting point. She hugged me, hard. I can't believe you did this. I did it for all of us. This isn't just about me anymore. The next 48 hours crawled by. I worked on client reports, answered emails, trained Tyler, who seemed completely oblivious to the nuclear bomb that had gone off 2 floors above him. I smiled, acted normal, and tried not to think about what would happen if the board said no. Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock, Richard called me back to his office. This time, he looked different. Less defensive, almost respectful. The board approved your terms. All of them. I let out a breath I didn't realize it'd been holding. All of them. All of them. Sharon's drafting the paperwork now. Your salary adjusts to $95,000 effective immediately. You'll see a retroactive pay adjustment for this year comes out to about $23,000 in back pay. Mariah's adjustment is approved. The company-wide audit starts Monday. Salary bands will be published by end of June. And I'll be sending the company-wide memo this afternoon. Thank you. Don't thank me. You backed me into a corner. But Sharon convinced the board this was the right thing to do, regardless of the financial pressure. Apparently, I've been blind to some things. We all have blind spots. He pulled out a document. This is the updated employment agreement. 6 months, then you decide. If you stay, well, discuss a promotion at that time. If you go, you agree to provide the knowledge transfer, consulting, and leave on good terms. I read through it carefully. Everything was there, exactly as ID requested. I signed it. One more thing, Richard said. I owe you an apology. What I said about your age, about being stuck, about not finding better opportunities, that was wrong. It was insulting and unfair. You've proven your value, and I should have seen it without you having to fight for it. I appreciate that. I mean it. We got complacent. We took advantage of people's loyalty. That stops now. Sharon came in with Maria behind her. Maria was crying and smiling at the same time. It's official, Sharon said. Salary adjustments approved across the board. We've identified 17 employees who were significantly underpaid compared to market rates. Total annual impact, $1.3 million. And honestly, it's the best money we'll ever spend. Maria hugged me again. I don't even know what to say. You changed my life. I was about to give up. You would have done the same for me. The company-wide memo went out that afternoon. Subject: Compensation Reform Initiative Team. IM writing to announce significant changes to our compensation philosophy and practices, effective immediately. Over the past several years, our focus on attracting external talent through competitive market rate salaries inadvertently created inequities for our long-tenured team members. Employees like Gina Thompson, Maria Santos, and many others have built this company through dedication, innovation, and consistent excellence. Their institutional knowledge and client relationships are irreplaceable assets. We failed to recognize and compensate that value appropriately. That changes today. Effective immediately. We're implementing comprehensive salary audits across all departments. All compensation will be reviewed annually against market rates, and transparent salary bands will be published by the end of Q2. We are committed to valuing loyalty as much as we value new talent. Both are essential to our success. Thank you to those who had the courage to speak up about these issues. You made us better. Richard Drummond, CEO. My inbox exploded within minutes. Colleagues I barely knew sent messages of support and gratitude. Some shared their own stories of feeling undervalued. Some just said, "Thank you." Tyler stopped by my desk, looking uncomfortable. "Hey, Gina." I just wanted to say, I had no idea about the pay differences. I feel terrible. I thought everyone here was paid fairly. It's not your fault, Tyler. You negotiated what you could get. That's what you're supposed to do. Still, for what it's worth, I've learned more from you in 3 weeks than I learned in 4 years at Stanford. You deserve way more than I do, than any of us do, really. I appreciate that. Can I still ask you questions? I promise. I'll try to figure stuff out on my own first. I smiled. Of course you can. That's what I'm here for. Over the next 2 weeks, the changes became real. 12 long-tenured employees received salary adjustments. Some were small, 5 to 10,000. Others were substantial, 30 to 40,000. The total came to $1.3 million in annual payroll increases. But the real change was in the atmosphere. People walked differently, talked differently. There was energy in the office that hadn't been there before. Amanda and Jessica took me to lunch at a nice restaurant downtown. Jessica ordered champagne. "You're our hero," Amanda said, legitimately. "You didn't just fight for yourself. You fought for all of us." I fought because it was wrong, and because I finally realized I had power I didn't know I had. "How did you get the courage?" Jessica asked. "I've been unhappy with my salary for a year, but I was too scared to say anything. I got angry. Really, truly angry. Richard told me I was too old and too stuck to find anything better. He expected me to just accept being undervalued because he assumed I had no options. That assumption was what gave me clarity. I realized I'd been negotiating against myself for 14 years, accepting less because I thought that's all I deserved. So what changed? I found out what I was actually worth, and I refused to accept less. 6 months passed. The salary reform stuck. Sharon worked with an external compensation consultant to establish real market-based pay bands. The transparency was uncomfortable at first, but it forced honest conversations about value and expectations. Client retention stayed strong. Datacorp, Pinnacle, and Alliance renewed their contracts, relieved that I was staying. I rebuilt relationships with other clients I'd been too busy to nurture, and revenue actually increased. Richard offered me a promotion, Director of Client Strategy, salary $115,000, plus equity and a seat in leadership meetings. I accepted, not because I had to, not because I didn't have other options, but because the company had actually changed. And I wanted to be part of making sure those changes lasted. Maria got promoted too, Senior Accounting Manager, $85,000. We celebrated with expensive wine and bad karaoke. I still can't believe this happened, she said. 6 months ago, I was ready to just quit and become a yoga instructor or something. You would have been a terrible yoga instructor. I know, I'm way too anxious. But I was that desperate. We deserved better. We always did. We just had to demand it. Looking back now, from my new office with actual windows, I understand what happened in a way I couldn't during those brutal weeks of discovery and confrontation. For 14 years, I believed that loyalty alone would be rewarded, that if I just worked hard enough, kept my head down, proved my value over and over, the company would take care of me. I thought being dependable and dedicated was enough. I was wrong. Companies don't reward loyalty. They reward leverage. The moment I discovered my worth on the open market, everything changed. Not because I became more valuable. I was always valuable. But because I finally had proof I could take elsewhere. I spent years being afraid. Afraid to rock the boat. Afraid to ask for more. Afraid to leave. Afraid that I wasn't good enough. That I'd gotten lucky to be here. That I should just be grateful for stability. But security built on being undervalued isn't real security. It's a trap. When Richard told me I was too old, too comfortable, too stuck in my ways, he thought those words would shame me into silence. Instead, they lit a fire. They showed me exactly how little he valued me, which paradoxically freed me to value myself. I realized I'd been negotiating against myself for over a decade. Every time I accepted a 2% raise without question, every time I said yes to more responsibilities without asking for more pay, every time I stayed late, worked weekends, sacrificed my own time because the company needed me, while they paid new hires $40,000 more, I taught them how to treat me. And I taught them wrong. Here is what I want anyone listening to understand, really understand. Your loyalty is valuable, but it should never come at the cost of your worth. Know your market value, not what you think you deserve based on your feelings or your years of service. Know the actual data. What do people with your skills and experience make? What would it cost to replace you? Document your contributions, not in vague terms, but in numbers. Revenue generated, costs saved, problems solved, systems built. Make it impossible for anyone to deny your value. Build relationships that transcend your employer, your professional network, your client relationships, your reputation in your field. Those are yours, not your company's, yours. And when someone tells you to be grateful for what you have, while paying you $40,000 less than the person you're training, don't accept it. Don't get emotional and burn bridges. Get strategic. I didn't just fight for a raise. I fought for systemic change. Because it was never only about me. It was about every person who stayed too long in a place that took advantage of their dedication. Every person who believed loyalty meant accepting less. Every person who was told they should be grateful while being exploited. You teach people how to treat you. For 14 years, I taught them I'd accept less than I was worth. It took 1 week of knowing my real value to teach them something completely different. The envelope I left on Richard's desk wasn't just my resignation. It was my declaration. I know what I'm worth now, and I will never accept less again. That clarity changed everything. Not just my salary, not just my title, my entire sense of self. I'm not the same person who stood in that copy room, holding that payroll document with shaking hands. I'm stronger, clearer. I understand my power now. And if you're in a similar situation, if you're feeling undervalued, stuck, taken for granted, I want you to hear this. You have more power than you think. You just have to be willing to use it. Start today. Update your resume. Check the market rates. Document your wins. Build your network. And when you're ready, have the conversation. Ask for what you're worth. And if they say no, be prepared to walk, because here's the truth they don't want you to know. You're not stuck. You never were. You just believed you were. And belief is the only chain that really holds us. So let me ask you something. Have you ever discovered you were being paid significantly less than someone with less experience? How did you handle it? Did you speak up or stay silent? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you courage or clarity, or just made you think differently about your own worth, please hit that like button. It helps other people find these stories when they need them most. And subscribe to this channel if you want more real stories about workplace challenges, personal growth, and finding the courage to stand up for yourself. We share new stories every week. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend who's been complaining about being undervalued. Maybe it's a colleague who's too scared to ask for a raise. Maybe it's someone who just needs a reminder that they're worth more than they've been accepting. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you value yourself the way you deserve to be valued. You're worth more than you think. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Know your worth, fight for your worth, and never, ever settle for less than you deserve.